Hi, my name's Amy, and I'm a visual artist. I started making art about 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm self-taught. And I just started painting. I started doing kindness stones, and I started doing small canvases that are maybe 3 by 3, 4 by 4, something like that. And I was finding that because it helped with my anxiety so much. The only thing that was really giving me any real peace was painting. I just started doing it a lot. While I was up and unable to sleep, I would paint. During the day, I was just painting and painting and painting. I wasn't really painting with a goal in mind or um, any reason to paint other than make this anxiety stop. And so I was very prolific in my painting, and I have these mini canvases and these painted stones kind of piling up in my bedroom, and I'm like, what am I going to do with all this? Because I want, and they're all little. What am I going to do with all this stuff? So what I did was I started doing what's called art dropping, where, well, how I do it is I'll take the piece of art and seal it, and I'll put it in a little plastic bag with a note. And the note will say something like, take me, I'm free art. And then it'll have a little explanation. This is for you to keep. I hope that you have a great day, or something like that. And then I would go out in the mornings when there's no people around. That was important. I didn't want to run into people I know. I didn't want to see people I don't know. I just really needed my own clear headed space. Um, I would go out, and I'm talking at the crack of dawn before people were at work. And I lived downtown New York, so I lived at the time, I lived near the Judicial Center, and it would get really busy around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. It was really busy on the sidewalks and the streets. And so I would go out at 6 o'clock maybe, and I would hide these little pieces of art that were packaged up in case it was raining. Um, and not hide them that they couldn't be found. I mean, hide them in plain sight. I would put them at the what was then called the Strand. I would put them in front of the Judicial Center, outside of restaurants, um, on public art and benches and windowsills and flower boxes and all over the place. And I would have a lot of these things to put around, mind you. I would go out with tons of this stuff, and I would just get my exercise. I wasn't trying to get exercise, but I was getting exercise that way. I was out at a time of day before people were out, so my anxiety wasn't being increased by running into people and having to do that. Um, and I was getting rid of all this mounds of artwork that had been accumulating. And so the art dropping thing in itself was a really good way to get me out of the house. I was going through something that was causing so much anxiety that it was hard for me to even leave the house at that time. Just the thought of leaving the house, just getting near my door, was just overwhelming me, and I was really getting almost agoraphobic. And so this got me out of the house in a non-threatening way. I had my little bag full of art supplies and planned out where to drop everything. So there were a lot of good things that came out of it for me. Another thing that I do here with the York art scene that is starting to come together is called the York Art Book Collective. It's based loosely on the Brooklyn Book Project, I believe it's called. Artists in York complete a sketchbook. And when I say sketchbook, it's not just sketches. It might be collage, it might be acrylic paintings, it might just be sketches that are pencil and paper. But you fill an art book, we're calling them art books instead of sketchbooks, to acknowledge that there is more than one medium. I guess another thing that I do with the art community is I started a paint night a few years ago. The idea behind that was I know how much painting helps my anxiety, and not only helps my anxiety in that moment, but I find that my nightmares go away when I'm painting enough and regularly enough. I don't have nightmares. If I stop painting for a few days, I start having the nightmares again. My nightmares go away. I feel even when I'm finished with some painting, I still feel a sense of serenity associated with that. It continues beyond just putting the brush to canvas. Um, my mind quiets down. Uh, Flashbacks and other kind of, bothersome uh, things, associated with complex PTSD, which is what I'm diagnosed with, um, seem to clear up. So I wanted to bring that to other people, kind of my joy of painting and what all it does for me. I think it helps anyone's stress or mental health concerns. So we started a paint night, and we were calling it community paint night in the beginning, and trying to keep it free or as free as possible so it was accessible to everyone. And knowing how painting has helped me in all of those symptoms and really reduced my symptoms, I was thinking that, wow, painting and probably other arts as well, but my thing is painting, would probably benefit anyone. Even if you don't have mental health concerns, everyone has stress at the very least. And a lot of people have anxiety, social anxiety, depression, complex PTSD. The list goes on and on. I just started, and wherever it came out is where it came out. Let me show you an example of that. Here we go. This is a very early piece that I did. It is 2 inches by 4 inches. And I put the colors that I was feeling on the background. And I thought it felt like peacock colors. So I made kind of an abstract peacock with white. Probably my very earliest thing that I was drawing was trees. And I was using larger canvases. Someone noticed, and I can't believe I was too close to it, I guess. I didn't see it. My initial trees were stumps with briars on them, and that was about it. And I wasn't trying in my head to paint a stump with some briars. That's just what it looked like. And it was very dark. It was blacks and browns, and that was pretty much the palette. And as you look at these things in sequence, all of a sudden, boom, one of them has a single flower on one of the briery branches. And over time, they started to get more branches. They eventually developed some leaves. Some didn't develop leaves, but colors came about, fruits came about. So that was a period where I was overcoming a tremendous tragedy. A real hardship for me, and that's why I first started painting, and that's what was coming out was briars and jagged, rough barbs. And one of the pieces out of that period that I still love is this tree that is gnarly and twisted and kind of broken looking. But yet, if you look at the middle branch, it still forms a heart. Here's something I just painted. Well, just made. It's multimedia. It's 2 inches by 2 inches from about there. And again, whimsical. His pupils of his eyes are little hearts, and then he's got little hearts around him, snail. And we named him, a friend and I were joking about him, and we named him because of the music, and a snail is slow. So I said Largo, because in Italian that means slowly. You play the piece of music slowly. And my friend said Largo escargot. Real quick, what I've been doing real recently and what I love to drop is little multimedia pieces. If you can read them, the one says I love York and the one says self-love. So little multimedia pieces. These are 2 inches by 2 inches. That have positive messages on them. That's what I like about multimedia. Or the type of multimedia that I'm doing anyway, is that they have little positive and motivating and inspiring messages. And again, put some refrigerator magnets on the back of those things, and you hope somebody wants to see it every day. Puts on their refrigerator. So, in addition to art helping me on a day-to-day basis, as I've talked about, it's reduced my symptoms with the complex PTSD a lot and given me a lot of relief. There are other things that have happened, not as intentionally, but have kind of organically grown out of paint. What started off as painting at home for myself, because that I got is out of desperation. I got to do something to stop all this stuff. And then what do I do with all this stuff? I'm gonna go drop it. It became kind of a connection with other artists. It grew into that, where I started meeting other people who liked the idea of dropping art and doing that, and it gave us common ground to talk about. We would talk about art, and then a lot of times we'd have these Me Too moments where we'd be talking about art, and if I said, oh, I didn't paint last night, I had these nightmares all night, I've got to go home and paint just because I have to, and the other person might say, oh my gosh, me too, I have the same experience. And I found so many artists have the same experience that I do. Imagine I went from somebody that could barely leave the house, that could not, I'd have all my appointments written down on slips of paper, and if I had all my slips, they weren't in one centralized location on a calendar. My brain just was not functioning after some of the trauma that I've been through. And now I keep a calendar, and I have things written on the calendar, and not just those things, but the things I need to do to get to that place, the supplies I need to go buy, the backdrop I've got, I have lists of things, what I need to bring with me to go to the paint night so I don't forget things. It's just mushroomed into not just a way of life, but also a way of doing things, a way of thinking. It's kind of, I feel like it's kind of retrained my brain a little bit